The Metroid species is terrifying for not what they are, but for what made them. A creation of hubris, born from a misguided attempt to control forces we didn't understand. Some horrors aren't born in darkness. They're brought into existence by choice, not out of cruelty, but conviction, and that's what makes them truly terrifying. Imagine a creature that doesn't kill for hunger or defense. It drains life itself, silently, instantly. Engineered not by nature, but by ancient minds who believed that they were saving the galaxy. The Metroid wasn't born, it was made. A weapon against something worse, but it didn't stay contained. It never does. Metroids don't think or hate, they feed. And with each generation, they adapt, evolve, and spread. In the words of Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That line wasn't meant to condemn evil, it was a warning about pride. The belief that our actions are justified simply because our goals are noble. The Chozo believed that they were protecting life. The Federation believed that they could harness power for peace. The Space Pirates believed that they could harness power for conquest, and they all believed that they were in control, until the price came due. In this video, we're going to explore why the Metroid species is far more terrifying than you think. Their unnatural origin, their parasitic body, their relentless spread, and the slow collapse of morality that follows just in their wake, consuming even Samus Aran. Stay with me until the end, because this isn't just a story about monsters. It's about what happens when we try to rewrite the laws of life, and end up unleashing something that no longer cares whether we live or die. The Metroids didn't emerge from natural evolution, they were created by the Chozo, a race of advanced near-mythic creatures of intellect. But this wasn't a story of conquest or cruelty. They built the Metroids as a solution to a problem far worse. On SR-388, a shape-shifting soulless parasite known as the X threatened to consume every organism. The Chozo feared the X would spread beyond the planet, destroying entire ecosystems, mimicking and replacing intelligent life. And so, they acted. They created a biological countermeasure, something that could hunt the X, that could drain its energy, neutralize the threat, and stop the spread. It worked. All too well. The Metroids thrived on the X, and then on everything else. What began as a cure became a plague of its own. They didn't distinguish between the X and other life forms. To a Metroid, energy is energy, and life is fuel. Here's the horror. The Chozo may not have fully understood what they created. We don't know if it was science, technology, something far older, something almost spiritual, but the creation escaped them, and the moment they lost control, the galaxy would never be the same. They weren't monsters by design, but once set loose, they became a living consequence. The Metroids became a new apex predator, making them dangerous to all life. The true horror of the Metroids isn't just the death they bring, it's how they feed. When a Metroid strikes, it doesn't tear the flesh or crush bones, it drains life energy. An instant terrifying extraction that leaves its victims as a lifeless husk. There is no struggle. There is no mercy. From the moment a Metroid latches on, its prey's life force is consumed, and the victim is drained. It's as if the creature is designed not to kill, but to erase life itself. As the species evolved, so did their hunger. The Metroid started as an organism capable of draining energy from a single host, but over time they adapted. They became faster, smarter. By the time we see them in Metroid 2 and Super Metroid, they have gone from simple energy drainers to sophisticated predators, aggressive, territorial, and deadly in ways no one anticipated. The creatures no longer needed to target only X. They were now hunting for anything with life, anything that could feed them. Their instincts sharpened, and their strength multiplied. After each new evolution, the Metroid became something less natural and more nightmarish. By the time we reach Metroid Dread, the Metroids have reached their apex, not just in power or intellect, but in their sheer horror. Their presence alone signals the collapse of everything we once considered safe. The horror of the Metroid species didn't end with their creation. In fact, it only began. Once the Chozo lost control, others saw the Metroids as an opportunity, an asset to exploit. The Space Pirates, for their own dark agendas, saw potential in the exploitation of the Metroids. As a ruthless faction always looking for weapons, they began to harvest Metroids en masse, using them as tools for conquest and biological warfare. They didn't care about the ethical consequences. The Metroids were a powerful resource, and they could sell or deploy them at will. The Federation, the supposed good guys, saw the potential as well. They tried to harness Metroids for their own purpose. They believed that they could control the creatures. They believed that they could harness their power for peace. The truth? They couldn't control them, and neither could the Space Pirates. Each time an attempt was made to contain the Metroids, whether by the Chozo, Space Pirates, or the Federation, it ended in failure. Every single time the Metroids escaped, they adapted, they evolved, they spread, and each time the consequences were worse. Planets fell to their infestation. When we think of Samus Aran, we think of the hunter, the lone warrior who stands against impossible odds. But Samus isn't just the hunter, she's also a victim, and so are the Metroids. The story of Samus and the baby Metroid began in Super Metroid, but it's been haunting her ever since. Samus was sent to planet Zeus, and during her journey, she came across the baby Metroid. But this wasn't any other Metroid. This creature imprinted itself on Samus. Metroids imprint on the first thing they see, and the baby Metroid's biological instinct makes its source of safety something akin to a surrogate mother. It's a horrific kind of irony because Samus isn't just the protector of the baby Metroid, she's also the prey. Then in the brutal climax of Super Metroid, the baby Metroid sacrifices itself to save Samus, who is at death's door fighting Mother Brain. The baby Metroid sacrificed itself to save Samus, not as an act of instinct, but to save its mother. This moment is tragic because while the baby Metroid's actions are driven by survival, Samus' own fight against Mother Brain is no longer just a mission to her, it's personal. The Metroids are no longer alien anymore. They are a reflection of Samus' own loss, and every time she faces one, she's reminded of the horrors of her past and the endless cycle she can't escape. The Metroids are terrified not because of what they are, but because of what made them. As Charles Baudelaire once said, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he never existed. The Metroids, like the devil in this quote, were initially seen as a solution, a tool for peace, until their nature was revealed. They were a creation that we didn't fully understand, hidden behind good intentions, but ultimately, they would become a force that could not be contained. Samus Aran, caught in the web of her own tragedy, is no longer a hunter. Her bond with the baby Metroid is a cruel irony. Samus is torn between her role as protector and the horrors of the Metroids embody. Even empathy, in the case of the baby Metroid, is corrupted by instinct and survival. The real horror of the Metroid species lies not in their physical form, but in the consequences of their creation. It lies in the knowledge that we made this, and now we must face the consequences of our arrogance. For the Metroids aren't just a threat to the galaxy, they're a reflection of our own failure to understand forces we sought to control. Metroids, the X-Parasite, and Samus Aran all share one thing, an identity crisis. Each was created, yet none understood who or what they are. In their struggle for survival, they reflect a deeper spiritual conflict, an endless cycle of becoming, unmasking, and losing control. Metroids once had a purpose. The X-Parasites once had a purpose, and Samus is on the bridge between both paths, and in the end, the true terror lies in the realization that humanity too is a part of the crisis. Metroids were created as a beacon of salvation, but in a cruel twist of fate, became a harbinger of the galaxy's downfall.